Well, hello and welcome once again to Studio Tapes.
Welcome.
Good to have you. Today we're going to be talking about a new free resource that I'm offering that can help you to improve your performance on Fiverr and hopefully your sales as well. That's coming up next. Today I'm offering a resource for free, which I think will be of great use to the people who sell on Fiverr, regardless of whether you're doing voiceovers or whatever other category of services you're offering. The fact is that when we work on Fiverr, there are certain gigs that we offer, certain services that we've listed or posted on there, which perform better than others. You might have one gig that's really kind of knocking them dead, and 5 or 6 gigs or even more that have one order or no orders. And if you look at the listings for them as to how many impressions, that means how many people have actually seen them listed, have had them come up in search, are less than impressive. So what we want to do is to look at ways to try and get the gigs that are not performing well, especially, to do better. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Everybody has gigs that do better than other gigs, and me included. I have gigs that are up in the tens of thousands of impressions, and I have gigs that are more like in the ones of thousands of impressions, or even lower in one case. So it's important that we be looking at the analytics that are available through Fiverr related to how your gig is performing, and to get a sense of where you're at, basically snapshot it, and then see what you can do to improve it. There are things that can be done to improve it, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Unless you have some kind of a system in place, it can be really hit and miss. Sometimes maybe you do it, other times you don't think to. Time goes by, and gigs don't improve, and you maybe have lost a lot of potential revenue just because you haven't established what needs to happen in those gigs or made the changes necessary for them to begin to show up in search. Let me bring up a web browser and also make it a little bit bigger text here as well. And this is my gigs page. And I keep the gigs page handy because I refer to it often. I suggest that maybe you consider doing what I do, and that's to actually pin the tab. Now, you can go to any page on Fiverr, and you can just, in pretty much any browser, the option may be a little different, but right-click and just basically choose Pin Tab. And when you do that, it puts it over here. I've done that with this and with several others, including my Upwork link and my Facebook chat link, because I have messages coming in from people all the time. So what I do is I have one of the pinned tabs assigned for my gigs. Not only does that let me look at my gigs and their performance routinely and see how they're doing, but it also is a quick and easy way for me to calculate out, when someone asks for a custom quote, calculate out what to charge them, because I can go right to the gig, I can punch in the numbers, I can tick the extras that they're going to need and get my figures for them, and then quickly go back and send them a quote without having to scratch my head and try to remember, what rate was I at on that gig for this many words and how much were the extras. And I do have some variation from gig to gig, so that really helps me. But the other benefit, of course, of having the gigs listed is that you have this resource. You can look at the gigs and see how you're doing in those gigs. And I'd like to look at some of that information right now with you. As we can see, the numbers for impressions are shown in the first column here. And impressions are pretty important because they indicate how well you're doing in search. If you're not being found in search, you're not going to get orders because people won't see you. They won't find you. Now, granted, you may get some through custom offers. You might get some through buyer requests. But for any new customers, you're going to be off their radar, and you don't want to be in that situation. So let's look at the impressions here. The impressions is an important column. Actually, let me go through all of the columns first, and then we'll kind of drill down on this. So impressions, I think, is really important because that tells us how we're doing in search. How many people have done search, and you've actually come up on their screen in search results. Clicks indicates how many people have actually clicked to find out more about you. And I believe that clicks includes clicking on the gig just to listen to the demo, your demo video. So I don't think that it necessarily means a click-through, but I'm willing to be corrected on that if I'm wrong. At any rate, at least shows some response on the part of the buyer that they have shown enough interest to click to find out more about you, whether that's viewing your demo or going to your gig. And then orders is, of course, that's the bottom line. That's where the rubber meets the road. If you get an order as the result of a click, then you make money. So you have to kind of get through all three of those stages. You have to be found and noticed, then you have to be clicked on, and then they have to like what they see and what your pricing is and so forth, and be impressed enough with your reviews or your standing on Fiverr or whatever to actually place the order. What we're going to talk about right now all pretty much has to do with just impressions. Because without those, as I mentioned, you're not going anywhere. You have to be able to be found. My impressions are all over. If we look here, I have one gig that's at 38,000, and I have one that's at 718. So there's a big difference, in the results. And these are all, by the way, in the last 30 days. Generally, I track by 30 days, but it doesn't matter. If you want to track by less, you can always put in like the last 7 days or the last 14 days or even the last 3 months or 6 months. You get all interesting statistics by doing that. I just tend to be at 30, and that's where I am. So, take that for what it's worth. But as I mentioned, as you look at the results here, they're kind of all over the place depending on which gig you're at. Now, let's say that there's one particular gig that you wish you were doing a little better on, and I would say that in my own case, maybe I'd like to be doing better on my voicemail. It's at 2.8 thousand impressions for the month. I will say this, that it has been getting some orders. That's good. So out of 109 impressions, I've gotten 12 orders. So that's happy news. But I would like to be found more often and to have, more business coming on my voicemail. I've done tens of thousands of voicemails over the years for various companies. So it's an area that I do feel like I can offer something good on, and we just want to get people going on it. So what can I do? Well, the thing is, when you make changes to your gigs, it can have a real significant difference in your search results. And so what we want to do is to start routinely checking to see how our gigs are doing in impressions and routinely tweaking to see if we can improve how they're doing. I created a chart. This is the free product, or whatever you want to call it. GigTracker is what I decided to call it, just to give it a handle, to make it a little more kind of accessible, so that people kind of understand what the purpose of it is. And this is it. Simplest thing in the world. Some people are already doing this on their own in various ways, but I just created a spreadsheet. I'm on the Mac, so I do it in a program called Numbers, which is kind of its equivalent to Excel on Windows. But regardless of the platform you're on, you will have some kind of an office spreadsheet that you can work from. And I'm actually saving this out for our subscribers, for the people that are following this, for my Gig Doctor patients, for my coaching students, for anybody that would like it. I'm just providing it free, and I'm going to give you a link, which you'll see down in the bottom here in the description, to the file. And the file, once you download it, can be customized however you would like. But I'm just going to show you how I'm using it and how you can use it. Okay, so all I have here really is just a simple spreadsheet with some sections in it. Each one of these represents one gig, just like we have one gig here, 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 listed in the gigs. So let's say that I'm working in this one, and I want to start tracking my phone gig. So I'm not going to give it the official title. I'm just going to use this for reference, because maybe I'll change the title, but it'll always be the phone gig. So I'll just say phone gig. Okay. And let's look at where it is presently, 2.8. Okay, so let's actually put in 2.8. That's today. And I'll put in today's date, which is 2/21/21. And then let's assume that I've made some change. I put in just an example here. Remove the word awesome from the title. I don't believe in using superlatives in titles for a variety of reasons that I can explain to you in a Gig Doctor sometime if we get together. But let's say that I removed the word awesome from the title, and maybe I substituted a word that I thought would be more effective, like fast. So we put that in. And maybe also another change, I updated the description part of the gig to mention what's included free. So just that much. And then there are also more columns in case we made other changes. But what I'm recommending is for each gig, you don't do a ton of stuff at once. Because if you do, and things change for the better or the worse, you won't really know which thing it was that changed it if you made a bunch of changes in one wholesale shot. So I suggest that on a weekly basis, and I suggest you talk to Alexa or Siri and just ask them to remind you on a weekly basis to go in, open up your GigTracker spreadsheet, check each gig, note what the current impressions are. That's what goes right here. And then if you feel that it needs a little tweaking, edit the gig and note what your changes were. And then the next week, all you would do is just add another row. I like to put the row above. Oh, I think I hit the wrong key here. Hang on. I like to put the row just above, like this, and put the latest thing at the top. And so you can do that too if you like. And then say like a week from then on the 28th, maybe your impressions are up to 3.3 or whatever they are, and you maybe make some other change, and you make note of it. By the same token, you could also set up other gigs in there, say your narration gig. And, these are all voiceover related, but it could be applied to anything that you offer. What are some of my other ones? Video sales letter. Or whatever, so you go through and you can just create headings for each of them and then just pop into gigs. If you've got it pinned to your browser, it's a really fast thing to bring it up and just look through the list. There they are. Boom, 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 boom. Just put in the numbers for each one. Decide if you want to make a change and make the change. That is all there is to this. But I believe that there's great potential for benefit to people who will follow along with this and do it on a weekly basis. So yeah, if you can put something into your schedule that will remind you weekly on Mondays or on the end of the week on Fridays or whenever you want to do it, to always go through and just update your gigs a little bit. There is benefit to it too, not only in having improved your gig's performance by making it more findable, by adjusting the things we've talked about. For example, the title of the gig, the description, the SEO title, the tags, your profile description. Those are 5 different places that you can make adjustments. So in addition to those things, which you do to legitimately improve the gig in an organic way in the search, there's one other benefit too, which we talked about in a previous video, and I'll mention here as well. If I go to, let's go to this gig right here. Just by the way, clicking on a gig when you're in the gigs listing shows you a bunch more stats and even a little chart, which is pretty neat. In this chart, you'll see that day by day, the numbers go up and down. Some days are really good. Some days are not so good. But the day on which I made a change is shown with that dark dot there, and you'll notice something interesting going on. The day that I made that change, I think it was to my tags, but it wouldn't matter. It's whatever change you've made. Fiverr has given me some props. It's given me a little kind of a bump, actually quite a bump. I'd say it's gone up, from 500 to 1,500, so almost 300 with a 300% increase.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that's what I think. So I think that Fiverr rewards us for paying attention to our gigs, for making little adjustments to them, for taking the time and the interest to try and improve what we're doing. And so we get rewarded. And when your gig takes a leap like that, you can see some significant results from it in sales. And as you can see, it tapered back off afterwards and went back down to a kind of an average of around 500 a day again. But for one day, it was 1,500. So, yeah, that's impressive. And so Fiverr helps us out. So if you, on a weekly basis, open up your GigTracker spreadsheet and make note of where things are, make little adjustments in each of your gigs, you will see bumps in performance when you check later on your scatter chart that Fiverr gives you. And if you get more search results, if you're showing up better in search, you will very likely have a higher number of clicks and a higher number of orders, so it's all good. Now, where can you find this thing? It's actually right down in the description below. And if you go down there and click on it, it's just a link to a Dropbox location where I have the file stored for you. And it's in Excel format, the XLS whatever format. So it will work on both a PC and a Mac and Linux if you have Linux. Anything that can open up the typical Excel spreadsheet format. It's very simple. You can customize it to make it look however you like. Make it real pretty. Make it welcoming to you. Whatever it takes that you look forward to opening it up every week and going through the process of just recording all your impressions and making some little adjustments. Save it out, you're done. And over time, as you add more and more rows to it, of course, the numbers that you add, you'll be able to track. Okay, where did I go? I was here, and then I was there. Are the numbers going up? They're going down. Maybe I need to make a change back to something I did previously because I've actually damaged my results. But you'll find those things out. For that same reason, it's probably not the best idea to make wholesale changes to a gig that's doing really well for you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, like I said in the previous video about this. But a lot of people didn't catch that video, so I wanted to do a second one and just kind of make a greater point about what we're trying to accomplish here, and that this file may be of help to you. Hope all of these are of help to you. Be sure to click and subscribe, hit the bell, hit the subscribe, so you can follow along on the studio takes, and we'll be doing another one real soon. Thanks a lot.
You give me a call.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, I think.
Hello, cutie pie.
Until I heard the voice, I'd never done a crazy thing in my whole life.
Goodbye.